Why will Joe Biden's America be safer? It's not exactly what you think it is, trust me. So stick around for the rest of the video so you can find out why it's not what you think it is. An article was recently published in the Washington Post that was trying to explain some of the different scenarios and outcomes of the 2020 election. And it very much so makes it feel like we're voting whether or not to have more SHTF scenarios. So like I said before, stick around for the rest of the video. I'll explain to you why Joe Biden's America will be safer. Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and today we're talking about why Joe Biden's America might be safer than the one we're experiencing right now, and how it feels like coming up on the election of 2020, we're really voting for whether or not we're going to experience more SHTF scenarios or not, okay? So basically, an article came out recently in the Washington Post that had me a little upset, I guess I might say. It is coming from the Washington Post, so there's probably a lot of reasons behind that. However, this article was an op-ed written by one of the members of the Transition Integrity Project. Now, the Transition Integrity Project, or the TIP, is a think tank or a group think situation where they take a lot of experts from a lot of different political fields, put them together, and said, tell us what you think all the different outcomes of the 2020 election might be. Tell us what kind of different problems might arise from the results of that election or from the lack of results of the election. So the Transition Integrity Project is something that has been working on this situation for a while. And like I said, one of its members wrote this article. And I did mention the Transition Integrity Project in my video about why you need to leave the cities now. So make sure you check that video out as well, because some of that information is relevant to what we're talking about right now. Now, basically, they've gone through a lot of war game scenarios. They've gone through a lot of different situations that the election of 2020 might bring about. And this writer definitely came from an area of bias, at least in my opinion. I will link the article I'm speaking about down in the pinned comment as well as in the description, so you guys can check that out, read it, and kind of get your own ideas about what this person was trying to convey. However, the only situation in their entire think tank scenario regarding the election of 2020 that didn't result in street level violence or chaos on the streets was a Joe Biden landslide victory, okay? So apparently, according to the Transition Integrity Project, the only way to have America stay safe and go to bed the night of the election of 2020 and wake up to a nice, quiet, and safe America is to have a landslide victory for Joe Biden, which I honestly believe is very unlikely. However, this is what their prediction was. They think that if this landslide victory happens for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that there will be peace on earth, okay? So really quickly, if you're worried about what this election means for you and what might happen during the 2020 election, hit the subscribe button below, because more of this is gonna keep coming out the closer and closer we get, and more unrest and everything else related to what we're seeing in the streets of America right now is going to be happening the closer we get to November. So keep that in mind. We're trying to stay prepared. We're trying to stay ahead of what's happening. And this op-ed was one of those insights to some of those people's thought process that made me think a little bit more critically, okay? There's a lot of things going on right now, and I think a lot of this is projection and maybe a little bit of telegraphing. So, according to the Transition Integrity Project, the only way out of street level violence and chaos is a Joe Biden landslide victory, okay? Every other scenario or result ended in chaos and street level violence and political crisis, okay? So basically, it's a catastrophe. Everything's a catastrophe except for his landslide victory, which is why a Joe Biden America is so much safer, because if he wins, we'll all be safe in our beds, okay? So here's what they're saying about the rest of the types of situations that they expect to possibly run into during the 2020 election. Their basic intuition is that there's a good chance that the current president will not relinquish power when that time comes, based on a lot of theoretical situations involving fraudulent voting, involving different constitutional loopholes that are able to be accessed from the executive branch. There's also a lot of other speculation based on the fact that propaganda from right-wing sources, as well as the president himself, will then push people to not accept the results of the election. There will be some people who are against the current president out in the streets saying you have to leave. The other people who think that everything he says is gold will be in the streets telling those people to go home and just accept the fact that this whole thing was a sham, okay? So similar things will happen if Joe Biden's elected, but on a lesser level according to the Transition Integrity Project. But the thing they're definitely sure of is that if the president, for any reason, doesn't necessarily leave the White House at the time that he's supposed to, there will be rivaling factions in the streets of America in violent confrontations. And that is something that should concern us all, because this is a think tank of over 100 people who they brought together that are supposed experts in the field, and they're saying that this is what's going to happen. Now, here's why it should concern you, and here's why it concerns me. And if you stuck around for the rest of this video to this point, then I'm glad, because now I get to explain how this is all gonna work and why Joe Biden's America is safer, okay? So, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are, in my opinion, and this is not coming from a political bias, this is just coming from what I have been able to see with my own eyes and hear with my own ears, but in my opinion, are a losing ticket. They are not winners per se. And if you're a Democrat, if you're a leftist, or you're somebody who votes more liberal, you should be upset that this is the group of people they've chosen to run for your card, because they are not a winning team. This ticket doesn't have anything positive about it. And whether or not you're conservative, liberal, right, left, whatever political group you might be from, you can take a look at this ticket and realize that it's almost as if the Democrats have decided that this election was theirs to lose. So why waste quality candidates on an election they don't feel that they're going to win anyway? And in my opinion, that's honestly what they did when they put this ticket together, because they knew Joe Biden wasn't going to be a big hit or a big seller when it came to anyone that is further left, let's say Bernie Sanders supporters, and it's not going to be a big seller or a big winner for even people who are more moderate or independent, because there's not really anything brought to the table from his side of the aisle. And Kamala Harris is very disliked in general. And I was in California while she was in charge over there in many different aspects, whether or not her as a senator or as an attorney general, but Kamala Harris is not very well liked. So they chose two people who really don't bring any enthusiasm to their side of the aisle. So in my opinion, and this is just speculation and a little bit theoretical, okay, but this is my thought. If this Transition Integrity Project honestly believes that the only way out of complete civil unrest and chaos in the streets is a Joe Biden landslide victory, and if the person who wrote this article is part of that project and clearly has a bias towards liberal leanings, then the only thing I can assume is that this is the game plan moving forward once this election reaches that point of November. The game plan is that they know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have a very slim chance of winning. In fact, they probably assume that they won't, because they wouldn't have put those candidates out there if their true intention was to actually win. Let's be honest, when you're a coach and you're running a team and you gotta get that grand slam in at the bottom of the ninth to win the game, right? Who are you going to put in there? You're not going to want your worst hitter. You're not going to want the guy who's going to constantly get you outs or give you pop flies or give you fouls. You want the guy in there, your big slugger, to go in and finish the game out. Now, yes, you don't get to necessarily choose that in baseball, but in this situation, you do. And they chose poorly. And I have to feel like it's on purpose, because I have to feel like they know this election was theirs to lose. The odds were against them, especially because you're talking about an incumbent president who generally, from what we've seen over the past few cycles, has gotten a 2-term session. So, that being said, the expectation of street-level violence and chaos in the streets is being put out there right now. And they're expecting it to happen. And this is something we have to prepare for, and we should be ready for, because honestly, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of how you vote, you, I'm sure, do not enjoy the idea of street-level violence and civil unrest in your neighborhood. Okay? Nobody should. It doesn't matter what the purpose of it is. When things start to break and burn, and when violence starts to happen and people start to get hurt, no one should enjoy that, regardless of why you feel it's happening. So, that being said, keep in mind that I honestly feel that this ticket is being pushed out there to lose, okay? And if it wins, that's what they'll be happy about, and they'll just say, look, we won, it worked out. But I don't think that's the plan here. So the plan, if this all comes together the way it's supposed to, is that this ticket goes in and loses, and then all the unrest and all the chaos that ensues afterward has now had the blame shifted to the current sitting administration, rather than the fact that this ticket they put together was already doomed from the start, okay? So yeah, if Joe Biden wins in a landslide and this transition integrity project is actually correct about how things are gonna go when this time comes, then great, peace on earth, nothing bad will happen, I'm sure. But the likelihood of that happening is very slim. We've seen how divided the country is. We see what people's thought process is when it comes to what's happening these days, and whether or not your opinion is valid or your opinion is worthless, it doesn't matter, because it's about a 50-50 split at this point, and people are even becoming more passionate about which side of the aisle they feel that they're on. And those of us who are independent, or maybe more libertarian, or maybe just lean towards moderation, aren't able to really find a good fit because things are polarized. And either outcome of this election is not going to be recognized as easily as any other election we've probably sat through in our lifetime. So that being said, this is what we need to watch out for. And the reason this video is titled "Why Joe Biden's America is Safer" is because that is the, dare I say, propaganda that's being put out there right now to let you know that when he loses, which is an inevitability in some people's minds, as well as the people who are on that side of the aisle, because they don't even want this ticket. They know it's not a good ticket. When he loses and the chaos ensues, the blame has already been telegraphed and shifted to those who are already sitting in the seat. And that's just something that I am seeing, and that's something that I wanted to share with you all, because we have to prepare for it. This transition integrity project is supposedly a board of experts that came together to give us their best opinion on what may or may not occur in the election. And the only thing that keeps us out of chaos in the streets and violence on the streets and people out confronting each other about the results of the election is Joe Biden winning by a landslide. So if that's the case, then his America is supposedly safer. And you know what? We're not going to see that America, because that's just not what's going to happen this year. Okay? And that's just my opinion. So leave it in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on where this is heading, what these people's thought process is, and why something like the Transition Integrity Project would seem to have so much bias from something that you would assume would be unbiased, in the sense of just trying to predict possible outcomes of a unrest situation in the country. And leave it in the comments below with your predictions as to what's going to happen based on the results of this election. But this is coming from sources that supposedly are part of the project. And if that's the case, this should concern you, because chaos and civil unrest and street level violence is what they're predicting and what they're putting out there. And if that's the case, we have to assume there's a good chance some of that's going to happen come 2020 election, okay? So if you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below. Like I said at the start of this video, the whole point of this video wasn't for me to get political on you and put any political beliefs on you. And like I said, if you have a left-leaning liberal concept and ideal that you vote upon, well, then all I'm saying to you is you should probably be upset with the group of leaders that they've put together for this ticket, because I think we both know it's not ideal and it's not going to do what you want it to do, okay? So, without anything else to say, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.